Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Anderson,
And I'm Shaelynn Farnsworth.
and we want to thank Acer Education for giving us the opportunity to talk a little bit about formative assessment today. I think it would be good to start our conversation maybe level setting and defining formative assessment. Shaelynn, what do you think?
I agree. I think formative assessment, when you take the learner's view, is the learner's GPS. It lets you know what they know, what areas you need to target. So I really consider it a GPS, and it allows the teacher to direct their instruction.
Yeah, and when I was teaching science, I taught middle school science. Formative assessment completely changed my classroom. I was the kind of teacher who, um, when I first started out, relied on, okay, I'm going to deliver a bunch of content to you through the week, and then at the end of the week, I'm going to give you this unit test, and if you do badly, well, poo poo on you, you didn't do good enough. And then, then we would have to go back and try to figure out where the mistakes were made. And that really just doesn't work either for the teacher or the student, right?
Agree.
So if the goal is to help, learning,
hmm
then formative assessment is really what drives that.
Agree. And I think that a lot of times as educators, we get stuck in the top of the pyramid. And so if you think about data in the form of a pyramid, up top you have those high stakes standardized tests. And I think a lot of times we live in that. But if you focus on the bottom level, which is the embedded formative assessment, it helps you make the greatest growth in student achievement. And so, what I want you to remember is don't get upside down in the data pyramid.
Right. And one thing that we've talked about recently, Hattie's effect size. And
Mhm.
if you look at all the different types of things that happen in the classroom, formative assessment has the largest impact on what students know and what students are able to retain and show what they know. Formative assessment needs to be a big part of the classroom. So, how do you think formative assessment drives student understanding and learning?
Well, I think it gives the instructor a view into their mind. It lets you know, like I said earlier, what they know and what they don't know, and it helps you to make on the spot decisions to target your instruction.
Yeah, I mean, from a teacher perspective, it's being able to rapidly change instruction. So we, as educators, we know our content.
hmm
We know ultimately where we want our students to go and what our students should be expected to know by the end of a lesson or the end of a unit. And if we wait until the end and then figure that out, well, we've missed that opportunity. We've missed the chance to go back and in the moment, in the heat of learning, say, whoa, wait a minute, kids don't understand that Pythagorean theorem equation, or they
hmm
don't understand those elements on the periodic table. I can quickly know that, and I can change that, and everybody then gets back on the same page. uh, and formative assessment can happen lots of different ways. It can happen, we can formatively assess at the beginning of a lesson, at the middle of a lesson, at the end of a lesson, but ultimately it's going to help us drive our instruction forward. And then for students, right, they understand themselves, what do I know by answering these simple questions? I mean, does formative assessment have to take a long time in the classroom?
Absolutely not.
No, I mean it's something that it happens quickly. Like I can ask two questions. I could ask two questions in my science classroom and know, oh, do my kids got it or not? Do they know what based on those objectives that I wanted them to have at the end of the day or the end of the
Mhm.
lesson, do they know it? Two questions, three questions. It's not something that takes copious amounts of time. It's not something that is something that is extra. And we talk about formative assessment a lot
Mhm.
with teachers, and when they come to realize that it's when it's not something extra and that it really does help change our instruction for the better. There is a place for summative assessment, and we've had that debate
Yeah.
before. And there are those teachers that believe that summative assessment is the end all be all. And that's the way that kids are going to know, and that's
hmm
kind of the old school way of thinking about things. If you know where kids are in the moment they're learning something, and you are able to say, no, I need to go back and reteach this, or okay, they don't need to spend
hmm
3 more days on this topic. They got it. We can move on to the next thing. The summative assessment kind of becomes an afterthought and becomes something that we don't need to entirely focus on. So, what about some ways to do formative assessment? So obviously we are deep in the ed tech world. We
hmm
do ed tech all day long. But there are people out there who may be thinking about dipping their toes into the formative assessment waters,
Yeah.
let's say, and so maybe technology isn't the right place to start. What are some easy ways you've seen teachers do formative assessment in their classroom?
Well, I learned of two great ones from some educators in Moline. And the first one was a hand thermometer. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, so a hand thermometer is when you gauge a student's understanding visually by where they place their hand. So if they didn't understand it, they're kind of low on the thermometer.
Mm,
If they kind of understood it, it's medium. And then if they totally did, it's up high.
mm-hmm.
And so visually you can scan. If you say, show me on your hand thermometer your understanding of this concept, they can demonstrate where they feel they fall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
The other one is great for younger kids. It's called moose ears. Have you heard of that one?
I have not heard of that one.
Another fun one. And so moose ears is when you ask kids after you're done and you feel like you have an answer to share, or you feel like you have an understanding of the passage we just read, whatever it may be. When they're ready to begin, you have them do moose ears. And so you have a whole bunch of ears on the top of your head, and then you can take another scan to see if they understood or they're ready to start or whatnot. Great for our youngest learners, but also middle school kids love this too.
That's too fun. So I didn't have anything fun like that. I mean, I've seen one of the simplest ways is for the end of a lesson. So, what are three things I know, and what's something I still have a question about?
Mm-hmm.
So, getting kids to summarize that learning in their own words, getting them to rely on their metacognition, think about their thinking, putting it on a Post-it note or an index card. And I've seen, me, I have tons of shoes, so I have those shoe racks, so you can hang a shoe rack in the classroom. Each kid, they drop their card in there. I've seen sticky notes, so teacher leaves sticky notes on the desk, and at the end of the lesson, hey, is there something you still have a question about? And they do it anonymously. So if I'm getting a lot of the same question, then I know that I'm going to start my lesson the next day. Hey guys, I got a lot of stickies yesterday about, whatever we were talking about. And so let's start our lesson there today. And those kids who got it, they got it, and they can help, reteach, or they can help other students. I've seen mailboxes. So there's the point is that you don't have to have anything overly complex in order to do a formative assessment. You can do hand thermometers, you can do moose ears, you can do sticky notes, you can do index cards. It can be something that is easy to do, but obviously we know that the whole purpose of technology is to make our lives easier and to do things quicker, and to then be able to look at that data over time too. So in terms of hardware, there's actually a really cool piece of technology out there, actually from Acer, this TravelMate B117, which is designed with formative assessment in mind. It's got some really neat software on there, which I think you're going to talk about. But one of the things that I was really drawn to was on the lid of the laptop, there's an LED light, and the students can control the LED and turn it one of four colors. So as a teacher, I can quickly say, green if you got it, red if you don't. Or I can say, I can throw up a multiple choice question and say, red is this, blue is this, green is this, whatever, what have you. And again, it's a visual to me by just being able to scan the classroom of seeing where kids are, and the kids are doing it. I know who's saying what, but the kids may not. There may be an intimidation factor if everybody says, "Oh, raise your hand if you don't got it." Well, I don't want to be that kid who says, I don't understand it. But so it gives it that little bit of more student control. What are some of the other things I have?
Well, I like that when you were speaking the light options. I could see in a writing classroom, if you have kids all working on different things, to use those lights for I need some partner work, or green, like you said, if you are good to go, red if you have a question, you need a conference. And so I could see that very valuable resource and option in the classroom. The other one that I really like is the pen it comes with,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called Window Ink. And if you can think it, you can ink it. I was reading a little bit about it, and I'm really big into demonstrating your thinking
Mm-hmm.
and visible thinking routines. And I just feel that that gives kids a different option to display their understanding. So whether it's doing a graphic organizer on a sticky note or math equations in OneNote. There's lots of different options with the pen that I think has not been there before. You know, I'm deeply immersed in the literacy world.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like my favorite subject area. And I was reading stuff about RTI, response to intervention, and
Mm-hmm.
they said RTI has never been more possible with the use of technology
Mm-hmm.
because it has that immediate feedback. You can set it up so kids know the correct answer,
Mm-hmm.
provide them tutorials, and it gives them not only immediate response for the teacher but also for the kids. And kind of circling back to Hattie, which we were talking about earlier, one of the areas with the largest effect size is when students own their own learning.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding where I'm at, where I need to go, and how do I get there.
Yeah, and you know, being able to demonstrate your understanding in a different way helps meet those different needs that students may have. Yeah, I was the kind of kid who could just rattle off the right answer, but if you've got kids who are better explaining it or drawing it and saying, you know, let me show you what I know and let me show you how I know what I know, it can make a huge impact. What about some some of your favorite? I know we have a ton of. I mean, we could sit here and do a 20 more, 30 more minutes on our favorite websites and tools. What are some that you've talked about recently that you're really into?
Well, I think probably for formative assessment, I really like anything that allows for immediate feedback for the kids. And so, of course, I'm a Google innovator, so you got to put Google Forms in there, Google Drawing for any mind maps, those types of things. I really am loving Nearpod. Because there's so many different ways kids can respond, and I think there's lots of value in that.
I mean, there's a lot. You can do multiple choice, you can do drawing, there's tons of stuff that you can do in there.
And I really love the option of speaking or video response. So recap from Maker's Swivel is one of my very favorites, along with Flipgrid.
Yeah, I mean, and the key there is multimodal, so we're not just looking at, just answer this multiple choice question and, tell us what you know, because learning just isn't just answering multiple choice questions. It's being able to demonstrate it those other ways. So Edpuzzle is one of mine. So yes. I'm really into Edpuzzle. So being able to take, a lot of teachers are into taking videos, and then, it will automatically pause the video and ask a kid a question at the moment in that video that you can capture, and then you have that information as they're going through, so it can all be asynchronous, so the kids don't have to do it all at the same time. Flipgrid's one of my favorites. Another one that we talked about, sticky notes earlier, Padlet is another good one, and I've used that with administrators. They love that, a virtual corkboard of sticky notes that you can put on text, you can put on URLs, you can put on videos, you can record, you can do all kinds of stuff. Again, it's that whole multimodal. So you could do a Padlet out the door. So you could use your Acer TravelMate, your Acer TravelMate V117, and you could use your pen, and you could go into Padlet and you could draw, or and easily be able to submit something that better demonstrates what you know as a learner. So I think the point here is that, I think if we were to recap, that formative assessment is should be an important part of every teacher's classroom, no matter what you teach.
Agreed.
So whether you're in kindergarten or home living or PE or biology or what have you, is that it's an important part of everything that we teach. It's not something that's overly complex, as we've talked about. It can easily be done. And it can be done with or without technology. There's lots of different ways to do it. Is there anything you would add?
Agree. I would echo that. It's the way to inform instruction so you can differentiate. And it also gets past that misnomer that all learners are on the same path according to their age, and they're all at the same point. So formative assessment lets you know where they're starting and boosts everyone up a level.
Excellent. So thanks everybody for coming and hanging out and listening about formative assessment, and thanks to Acer for Acer Education for having us today. And again, I'm Stephen Anderson at Webtoning Classroom.
Shaelynn Farnsworth.
At
SH Farnsworth.
those are our Twitters, so you can come check us out there and ask us questions about formative assessment. Thanks.